cleanse the land.
Hey everyone, here I'm going to do a quick video just talking about Zhongli, how I feel about his place in the meta, specifically Spiral Abyss. I'm not going to be talking about Overworld too much, because that stuff is fair simple, should be pretty easy to clear, so I wouldn't be taking that into consideration and talk about his strengths and his weaknesses, because you can clear it with 4 stars. So we're going to talk about pulling a 5-star. It's going to be solely on their performance in the Abyss. That doesn't mean if I see him in a certain negative way that you shouldn't pull for him. At the end of the day, pull for the characters you like, pull for the characters that will make you happy, pull for the characters you want to play. With that in mind, I'm just going to lay some quick groundwork. We're going to be talking about what constellations on him are good, what his good weapons are, what teams he works in, what accounts can benefit from having a Zhongli, and what accounts wouldn't benefit a huge amount from having a Zhongli. So yeah, let's get into it. Zhongli is a Geo Polearm user. He's a 5-star. Who's like pretty good in defensive utility because he's got really big shield. It's the biggest one in the game by a pretty decent margin. So he's pretty good if you're looking for like a defensive option. But unfortunately, the main drawback is that because of that, he doesn't have too many offensive utilities that some other defensive options might have. So like Toma can provide some pretty decent offensive utility from his constellations. Diona has an EM buff, things like that. The main benefit of a shield in Genshin is that it gives you some interruption resistance. This lends him well to hyper carry teams, so he can help a unit output their damage without caring about enemy attacks. But not all hyper carries benefit to the same degree. So for example, Hu Tao has very non-committal animations. She's quite fast to move around with. So because of that, she doesn't get as much benefit from Zhongli as, let's say, Yoimiya would, because Yoimiya is really reliant on doing her full attack string. And so because of that, Zhongli can help her reach that last hit, the hit with huge scalings on it. Zhongli's shield isn't just defensive utility, however. It does have some minor offensive utility, that being a 20% universal res shred. On paper, a 20% res shred is quite nice. When you compare it to other sources of buffing and resistance shredding, it isn't that big, and it isn't something that you should pull Zhongli for. It shouldn't be a main selling point of his, because it really isn't. Zhongli is a perfectly functional unit at C0, and all of his constellations are more quality of life and comfort things, as opposed to being massive buffs or massive changes to his playstyle. So his C1 and his C2 are probably some of his most valuable constellations. C1 makes it easier for him to maintain his uptime on certain builds you're running, like 4-piece Tenacity Millilith. It sort of buffs his energy generation because it gives you another source to generate your particles. However, both your pillars share the same energy generation cooldown. As well as that, it can increase his damage in certain teams, like if you're using him in like a microwave team or a geo damage build, it can increase his damage there because it's giving you another source. C2 is probably his best constellation because it tightens up your rotations a bit. It enables you to use your burst and generate a shield at the same time, so you don't have to make the choice between the two. Gives you higher shield uptime, and it also enables for your burst not to be a completely useless ability, because it allows for you to get some value out of it by generating that shield, as opposed to holding E for the shield and then doing your burst, which takes up a lot of field time, and you gotta just cast your burst. The rest of his constellations are not the best. His C6 is a bit finicky, especially with like a Hu Tao team. It's not ideal. And the rest of them are just levels to things. I suppose his C4, increasing the AoE of your burst, can be kind of nice, but that's just quality of life and comfort things as opposed to being a big increase in his usability. So if we're going to look at his weapon options, Fav is like what you're going to be using 99% of the time. Just the energy recharge. Fav weapons in general, they're just broken, man. If you have the ability to use one, use it. If you don't have the ability to use one, find a way to use it. 90% of the time, your team will benefit from a Fav, because people in this game don't build enough ER for whatever reason. Fav is very good on him. Black Tassel is also another option, the HP substat 3-star polearm. However, it gets outclassed by a lot of other things, just because it pigeonholes him into a purely shield bot, no other kind of utility option. Like Fav has a lot more utility, so Fav is a lot better. And if you want your Zhongli to do a bit of damage, Homa is viable. However, it's a Homa, so you can be running that on so many other Polearm users. Probably get more value over the entire account, but it is usable if you want to. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. So like in conclusion, he works best when you're trying to support a hyper carry like Ito or Yoimiya. So if you want to play an Ito mono Geo team or a Yoimiya team, you really like those characters, you want to play them, you want to maximize them, Zhongli can be a very viable and competitive option in those teams. Some cases he can be the optimal one. However, in some other teams, he might not be optimal, but he can still be somewhat viable. Really depends on the other units that you're running. Like for example, Hu Tao can get enough from just Xingqiu's Rain Swords. Wanderer can really function well with Toma at a C6. So they don't rely on Zhongli as much as Ito and Yoimiya would. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, share the video to somebody who might be on the fence about pulling Zhongli. Hopefully this helps them come to a conclusion. If you're on the fence about pulling Zhongli, hopefully this video helped you come to a conclusion as well. Leave a comment, let me know if you disagree with what I said, if you agree, if you have Zhongli, if you don't have Zhongli, if you're gonna get him after this video made you think you don't need him. I'd love to read all those comments. So, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in a future video.